everyone, and welcome back to the Autonomous IT Podcast Network. I'm your host, Landon Miles, and we've got a really fun episode lined up for you today. We're going to take a look into the underworld of vulnerabilities, exploits, and cybersecurity and see what we can learn. Now, everyone loves a good true crime podcast, and we're going to dive into the why and how of cyber attacks, and then we're going to talk with Jason Kikta, who's a cybersecurity expert and the Automox CTO and CISO, to break down some of the psychology and methods behind attacks and how to know what you're up against. So to start off, what is a vulnerability? Think of a vulnerability as a key left under a doormat. It's completely harmless until someone knows that it's there and knows to use it. So why do vulnerabilities exist? They usually show up for one of three reasons. So one, human error, misconfigurations, missing checks, legacy shortcuts, simple bugs. Two, design flaws, unintentional, faulty code. And three, malicious intent. These are backdoors or malicious code added by threat actors. Now, vulnerabilities don't follow a strict timeline, but they often moved through these 5 steps. The first 2 steps are introduction and discovery. So introduction, the code is shipped and the flaw appears. Discovery is when a researcher, developer, or an attacker finds it. These 2 steps happen in order typically, always. And then the next 3 steps, they can happen at any time, overlap. The next 3 steps are disclosure, exploitation, and patching. So disclosure, the issue is made known either privately or publicly. Exploitation, if it's valuable, it gets used by attackers. And then patching, so when updates are released, to fix it. So again, only introduction and discovery happen in order, and the rest can happen anytime after that. Exploitation can happen before disclosure, and patches can land before an exploit becomes public. The order changes, but the pattern remains. Now, the next key item to break down is hackers versus attackers. A hacker wants to understand a system, bend them, break them, fix them. Curiosity comes first, and there is not really a good or bad label attached. Now, an attacker or a bad actor adds malicious intent, so unauthorized action toward a goal. So bad actors point the craft of hacking at profit, espionage, clout, or chaos. So with this knowledge, let's take a look at a case study, Log4j, which is one of the most far-reaching vulnerabilities in the last few years. What is Log4j? Log4j is a Java logging library used across millions of applications, often buried several layers deep in software stacks. It records runtime data, errors, user actions, system behavior. That visibility made it an indispensable tool, and also, as we're going to see, slightly risky. Log4j's JNDI lookup feature allowed JNDI lookups to fetch data from remote servers. And if an attacker can control what was logged, they could trigger a lookup, making Log4j reach out, download, and execute code from a remote server. This wasn't a typo, this was just a feature that had gone wrong. So late November 2021, in one of my favorite stories of all time of a vulnerability discovery, researchers and players of Minecraft noticed that chat messages could crash or compromise servers. A crafted JNDI string in a log line caused the game server to reach out, fetch attacker-controlled code, and run it. There was no authentication, no privileges needed, just a log string. By early December, it was clear that any system using Log4j could be vulnerable. So, late November 2021, accidental discovery. Minecraft reports lead researchers to the Log4j JNDI lookup mechanism. Early December 9th, public disclosure, CVE 2021-44228. This was a proof of concept. Mass scanning began within hours. This was given a CVSS 10.0, highest possible. And then December 10th through 15th, exploitation started at a global scale. Attackers used the flaw for crypto mining, data theft, and remote control. And then December 11th through the 18th, that's when the initial fixes from Apache, owners of Log4j, started to land. They kept rolling out patches. And years later, many systems still remain exposed. Automated scans still probe for this every single day. Because Log4j is embedded so deeply in countless third-party packages, tracing every instance proved very hard. So deep dependency chains and unseen third-party components can expose the most careful teams. At Automox, we have a worklet that can scan for log4j, but we'll leave that out of here for now. But if you need that, it's there. So the pattern repeated itself. So flaw, discovery, exploit, fix, verify. Now, to walk us through reading some more of those signs and how that shaped defense, I'm going to interview Jason Kikta, CTO, CISO, BOFH at Automox, a Marine Corps veteran who led operations at U.S. Cyber Command, as well as many other things. So without further ado, let's cut to Jason. Hello, Jason. Thank you for hopping on with us. Many people will know you from the CISO IT podcast, but do you want to go ahead and just give a quick introduction of who you are, your background, and what you do at Automox also?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Landon. Appreciate you having me on. And for the audience, my name is Jason Kikta. I am the recently promoted Chief Technology Officer here at Automox, as well as the hold the CISO role as well. But been here at Automox for 3 years, where I run security, IT, product and engineering. And before that, I did 20 years in the U.S. Marine Corps doing IT and cybersecurity. And I spent 7 of my last 9 years at U.S. Cyber Command running the National Counter Cyber Mission. And because I'm a glutton for punishment and my ample spare time, I also teach a grad school class at Johns Hopkins SICE on how intelligence agencies use cyberspace to their advantage and how they conduct covert operations. And then I'm also an adjunct senior technical advisor at the Institute for Security and Technology, where I advise them on advanced AI and cybersecurity threats.
Yeah. So Jason has more titles than just about anyone I know, but
like Pokemon, you got to get them all.
Yeah, you got to catch them all, I guess. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we wanted to kind of just start out talking about what drives hackers, what drives attackers. Are they the same? Are they different? Kind of, can you go into give us a little bit of insight on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is both. I think it's easily understood, but I think it's also easily mistaken for the layperson or for those who are new to the field, because they tend to munch the various motivations together, right? So a hacker in classical terms, there is no implication of good or bad. It is somebody who, wants to understand how something works, wants to see, how far they can push it to the limit, how they can make it work differently, how they can break it, how they can fix it. So, in that sense, I very much consider myself a lifelong hacker, as I know you do as well, Landon. So there's no implication of badness there. And we sometimes use informal terms of art, like black hat, to denote somebody who is malicious in intent, or white hat to designate somebody who is good in intent. And that's from old cowboy movies. I don't really particularly like those terms, but there's a range of motivations, especially when you talk about individuals. And then you have things like hacktivist groups, which are actually more rare than the news would have you believe, because they're so popular for other groups to use as cover. You have criminal groups who have a purely money-making priority. You have sort of the in-between, where it's criminal, but money isn't necessarily their top priority. They're looking for clout and recognition and love chaos, like the calm. And then you have your full range of state actors, where most of them are military or intelligence services, or they're contractors in some countries, where they have a need to fulfill intelligence requirements, and occasionally for a subset of them to produce cyber effects on an adversary's network or networks.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So when it comes down to the attack types, um, like attackers being kind of bad guy hackers or bad
Right.
actors, but how do you, I guess I always kind of see that there's two different types of attacks, to put it very broadly. So there's the targeted attack. So you have
Yep.
broad example being Kevin Mitnick, who is going after specific information. For his case, it was with telephone companies, but that was quite some time ago. And then there's
Right.
the opportunist attacker, or opportunist attack, where it's just, hey, broad, we're going to spray and pray almost. We're like WannaCry, where it's like, hey, whoever gets this, better for us.
Mhm.
So how do you, when you are under attack, how do you know the difference between those? Does the difference between those matter at the time?
Oh, it absolutely does. I think this is one of the most critical things that um, is where there's a set of debate on this, and people talk past each other a bit. So there is one school of thought that says who the attacker is and what their motivations are is not important to know. All you need to know is what they're doing to your network and how to counter it or stop it. There's another that says understanding who is attacking you and what their motivations are is absolutely critical. There's a grain of truth to the former, but I fall into the latter. The grain of truth in the former is, you know, at the time an incident is starting, you really need to just sort of focus on the fundamentals of, where you can see them, where you maybe cannot see them. You have a point of information. That might be the very start of the intrusion into your network. It may be 15 steps in. You don't often know, unless it's on a boundary device, but you don't often know exactly where that is. And so now you need to start pulling that thread in both directions and figuring that out. And at that point in time, who they are is not as important as what they are doing. That
Yeah.
said, I feel that in my experience has borne out that knowing who is conducting that small a attack in the case of espionage, or capital A attack in the case of effects
Hmm.
into your network is just really critical to understand, because it gives you an insight into what sort of techniques or tradecraft to look for. It also gives you insight into what their end goals may be. And so, if you only see them up to this point, you know what to look for beyond that point, and where, like what system would they have gone for? Well, they're here to steal information. So they went to one of these three
Yeah.
places. Most likely, let's go look in those three places, because that's where most of our information is. So that sort of insight is very, very helpful. Also, I think the other piece that gets lost is like knowing that it's an Iranian actor who's after confidential plans for some piece of equipment that you're producing for the Department of Defense. That's usually sufficient. You don't need to know,
Hmm.
like, hey, it is exactly this unit within MOIS. Like, that's not useful information. So it's that matter of degrees and context where we talk past each other a bit.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is the first 30 seconds or so when you get the call at 2 a.m. that your network's under attack, it doesn't matter who it is. But then after that, it does.
It
So,
becomes real interesting real fast. And again,
yeah.
like, to a limit of, I
Yeah.
don't need to know the person's name on keyboard. That has never
Yeah.
been useful information unless you're in my former job and you want to do an indictment against the person or something. But outside of that, it's not really relevant. But
Yeah.
understanding at least the categorization of, is this a state actor conducting espionage? Is it a criminal actor who's about to ransom my network? Those are going to have two very different attack paths, two very different outcomes. They require two very different
Hmm.
responses. So
Definitely.
having knowledge is absolutely being well armed.
So how do you go about gaining that knowledge kind of from the beginning you're under attack? How do you go about understanding who is attacking you? I mean, is you just kind of looking at the blast radius of what they're getting to, or kind of what is your methodology of understanding the attacker, and kind of what type of actor they are in that moment?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it. We could be here for hours. But I think there's a few things that are enduring and work well over time that are just sort of fundamentals that we can look at, such as, what was the initial access, right? if it's a phishing campaign, I've already narrowed down the known universe of who the actor is. If it's social engineering, I'm going to go in a,
Hmm.
and phishing has a social engineering component to be sure, but if it was social engineering over a phone call, I'm going to immediately think of actors like the Com, Scattered Spider, Lapsus, Shiny Hunters. That's going to be who's foremost in my mind because they are so well known for doing it and they are so prolific. Unless I'm involved, if I have either financial mechanisms that I control or my customers do, and then in which case I would think about the North Koreans, for
Yeah.
instance, right? Because they're focused so heavily on fundraising these days for the regime. But if it's, exploitation of a public facing appliance that's vulnerable, right? My mind is going to go more towards uh, probably data extortion or ransomware actors because they like that bulk access. Maybe a state actor conducting espionage because they also sometimes roll that way. Especially we've seen the Chinese do it with Hafnium and some other examples. The Hafnium related incident, like there's just a lot of different ways it can go. So like looking at that initial access gives you clues.
Hmm.
Looking at their follow-ons of, did they lay down a rat, a remote access tool? Like what kind of implant are they using? Is this bespoke, custom one-off? Like does it only exist on my network? Well, okay, now we just really narrowed the universe down. Or is it a common file that's found on a number of systems, but still a limited number? Okay, well, different universe. If it's broadly available, if it's known criminal, if it's they're completely living off the land, all those things help you sort of narrow it down. And again, security depends on a division of labor and a division of knowledge. So the people who are looking for those clues and indicators, looking for that malware, looking for those changes to configuration, looking for data being removed from your network or exfiltrated, they have their focus is on finding, and
Hmm.
others are focused on evaluating and assessing and trying to figure out, okay, who is coming after us? What are they after? What may they have already done? Do we have time? Do we not have time? There are some actors who, they have a 5-day dwell time. If you
Yeah.
catch them within the first 5 days, nothing unrecoverable has happened yet. So it'll be expensive to clean up, but it's not going to do any major damage to your company. There are others who, if you don't catch them within the first hour,
Yeah.
you are going to
It's
have a bad
gonna
time.
be a bad day.
It's going to be
So
a real bad day, right? And
yeah.
so, and your focus should therefore shift from trying to figure out every little thing they've done to what did they take and what are they going to do with it, and how do
Hmm.
I mitigate that to the best of my ability? Do I need to notify customers of a breach? Do I need to, because their data was taken, do I need to clean up systems, right? Because they may be long gone, right? And
Yeah.
so there's another aspect is sometimes the actor is like they've come and gone, and you can do regardless of whatever you do. They're not interacting with your network anymore. The game is already over. And there's others where they are very much there and fighting for access, and you have to move quickly and work around the clock to stop them if you want to prevent them from reaching their objective.
So in the last live show, we talked with Ryan Bronstein and Tom Boyer, who are also on the security team under Jason. But one thing that they talked about was always having a working theory of how the breach happened, of who the breach is. So, is how much of a part does understanding the attacker and who the attacker is play into that?
Yeah, I think it's very important to understand that. And, that's, I like having a working theory at all times because it gives me something to benchmark against. And I'm continuously looking for information that either proves or disproves that theory. The key is you have to keep an open mind. If you find
Hmm.
something that does not fit in your theory, there is a flaw or an unaccounted for aspect in your theory. Uh, but it helps you keep a little more focus, and it also helps you uh, it helps you sort of articulate what it is that you want to be looking for next, what it is that you should be thinking about. So it's just, I find it has always helped me focus well when working intrusions in the past, especially large intrusions, right? If
Hmm.
you're on a DoD network and you're talking tens of thousands of nodes and very complex systems that have evolved over time and have a lot of legacy hardware and that kind of thing, it really helps you to better understand what it is you're up against, and to again just focus your efforts, because there's so many systems to interrogate that you will be there for far too long if you try to go and interrogate them all. So you have to
Hmm.
sort of turn the map around and think from the attacker's point of view of what are their goals, what are their objectives. If I was at this point in this network and I had these level of permissions and this sort of access, what would I see? Like, what would I see beyond me, and what path or paths would I be most likely to go down? Because again, right, cyber, they can go down two
Yeah.
paths simultaneously, especially if there's, if it's a team of actors rather than an individual. So you need to just think through those things, and that helps you figure out your next steps.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're going to kind of spin infinitely just trying to like go through every single log, and it's not really feasible.
Yeah. So you touched on attacker mindset a little bit. So what are some areas that you see or you would recommend um, when people are going through the attacker mindset and analyzing their networks? What are some areas that you often see overlooked? So if I'm going in trying to harden a network, what are some
Mhm.
what are some areas that you see often overlooked, or what are some areas that you would recommend that people make sure that they have, including the basics or anything else in that regard?
Yeah, this is a passionate one for me because it's so often what gets people right, and I think it manifests in many different ways. Of people don't think about um, the actor's need for operational security, their desire for it. They don't think about also when they're trying to recover. They tend to overlook the recovery phase. So, like a great example of the recovery phase is I remember there was one incident that we were working with the FBI, and it was a U.S. company that was victimized by a ransomware actor that we cared about, and we were talking with the FBI and giving them information, and they were working with the company, and the initial word that came back was, no problem, we're not going to pay the ransom, easy peasy, we have really thorough backups, fantastic backups, they're offsite, they're immutable, meaning that
Hmm.
they're write only, they can't be overwritten, they can't be messed with, and we've tested this on every different machine profile we have. It works flawlessly. What they did not test was their ability to recover from that backup at scale. And
Oh,
so individual machines, handful of machines worked perfectly. When they tried to do thousands of machines simultaneously, and it was going extremely slowly, they did the math and realized it would take them 4 months to recover all their machines. And so and in the end, they ended up paying the ransom, because even though they had a fantastic recovery plan, they had um, not actually tested it at scale, or at least done the math to simulate what it would be
mhm.
like at scale, and it wasn't feasible for their business needs. On a but back into the attack, one thing that I think people often overlook is, well, I have logs, fantastic. you know, Back when I was an APT, my one of my focuses of me and my team was, we don't want to get caught, and so let's make sure that we clean the logs, right? And that might be, if you're doing it hasty, you might just delete the logs outright. You might modify entries. You might just remove selective entries. A lot of different ways you can go depending on the system, but I've seen a lot of folks burned because they a you know didn't have a mechanism for logging, and for therefore for to drive their analysis. that would withstand a determined attacker who was going to wipe
Mhm.
out evidence. And
Yep.
so that's one of those things that you really need to think very carefully about. How will you do that, right? If you have critical logs that you cannot lose to the actor, then you need to do something like, put a server on the other side of a span port, and have a dummy server that you're streaming these logs to, and then really it's this, the hidden server that's getting them all.
Mhm.
Or you need to, ship them off to either something on your network that you've configured extremely well to do immutable copies, or off to a cloud asset. And if it's off to a cloud asset, then you need to make sure that if you're pulling from there and only there, that it's going to reach your seam, or whatever analysis tool you're using in a relevant kind of way, right? You don't want that backup scenario
Yeah.
happening to you. So you need to architect your not just your security, but your security analysis function to withstand an actor who might be deeply invested in preventing that analysis, because they have taken the bet that sooner or later you will figure out someone is there.
Mhm.
But they're not necessarily trying to hide forever. They're trying to hide for as long as possible, and the longer they can stymie your analysis, then the longer they can dwell on target.
Yeah, and then so what's your advice for understanding your own network's flaws and areas? I mean, do you just take a step back and attack your own network, see what, like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to take a step back? Yeah. So, yeah, you want to talk on that, just kind of just making sure that, I mean, no system is impenetrable.
No, no,
So
none.
yeah.
I've watched many try and fail at that one, in the end. But you, but the irony, or the flip side, the unexpected point, is that systems can be impenetrable in the time that's relevant to the attacker,
Hmm.
right? No one has unlimited resources. I worked
Yeah.
alongside NSA. No one has unlimited resources. Sooner or later, any actor is going to reach a point where the juice is no longer worth the squeeze, and they're going to move on to more fruitful endeavors. And so the longer you can uh, make the attack take to be successful, the more likely that they give up and they move on to someone else, right? It's like, and this is especially true with opportunistic attacks like ransomware and
Hmm.
data extortion. It's that old joke about, you don't have to be faster than the bear, you just have to be
Ah,
faster than your friend.
yeah.
Um,
Just don't be the slowest.
they're,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, they're gonna go after, they're going after low hanging fruit. They're going after whatever has caught their fancy that day. And if you happen to have it and be readily accessible, then you're going to have a bad time. And if you don't have the thing they're looking for, it's in a more secure configuration than your neighbors, or you have things beyond it that stymie the attack, they're not going to invest the time. Now, a state actor who is after data categorically, they will put in a little more time, but not a ton, right? If my
Hmm.
job is to get, defense information, or my job is to get information on US critical infrastructure, well, there's a lot of places that I can get that. And if I don't have something leading me to, but I have to get it from Automox, I have to get
Yeah.
it from, Acme Incorporated, I have to get it from right there, then they're going to have a limited time as well. And if they've determined that you are the sole holder in the universe of this information, then they're going to invest heavily in it,
Hmm.
sometimes on the order of years. But uh, you know, that's a lot of time for them to have to be continuously right and evade detection and countermeasures. So it's not, the offense is not as easy as people always think it is. It's because we
Hmm.
compare apples to oranges when we talk about opportunistic versus targeted attacks, and then within targeted attacks, sort of, the adversary's level of effort that they're willing to invest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's a lot easier to social engineer something or
Yeah.
compromise
Yeah.
their
Social
credentials than it
engineering
is
works.
to find a vulnerability and like or exploit a 0 day too. So
Yeah. And so, there's exercises that you can do by just, looking at your own network and thinking about, if I was going to attack this, how would I do it? What would I go after? What would be the most, effective way to attack myself? You can hire people onto your team, and we have some here at Automox whose job it is to just think about that full time and to
yeah,
constantly test and retest and try and break things internally. You can also hire pen testers to come in and try and break into your product or break into your network, and we do that here as well. So there's a lot of routes to go down, and I like that progression of everyone should be thinking about it for themselves. You should have people internal who, that is their primary duty of breaking in, and then you should always be continuously seeking out those external views, right? To include things like bug bounty, right? We run
yeah,
a vulnerability disclosure program here, and we pay relatively well to industry norms. And that is
hmm
because I'm a big believer that, getting that diversity of views on the security of the platform, the network, the agent is extremely important. And, we get a lot of junk, but we also sometimes get something that's truly useful or looks at something in a different way. And maybe what they gave isn't quite a bug, but it gets us thinking about something
yeah,
else that we go run down in another place. And so, it's really helpful to just have as many eyes on it as possible, because everyone's different and unique and thinks about problems in different ways. And that the more you pick at it, the more you will find. And you have to have this sense of continuous improvement, right? This is
yeah,
never done. This
yeah,
isn't a destination. It's a continuous journey.
yeah. And even if you think it's done today, it won't be done tomorrow. So,
Nope. Nope. Yeah. That's
yeah,
every network is in a continuous state of breaking, as is the
yeah,
internet, and you have to constantly be fixing it.
yeah. Absolutely. Well, Jason, thanks so much for your time and for hopping on this podcast with me, and appreciate all the insights. And we'll, but yeah, is there anything you want to leave the audience with before we get out of here? Oh.
um, I always go back to sort of my core fundamentals of, it's the attacker's job to know your network better than you do, right?
hmm
So having a good layout of your network, having a good inventory of your systems is critical. Um, you know, having those fundamentals of patching and configuration, that IT discipline and IT safety mindset buys you a lot of security right off the bat. And then protecting identity is just very, very critical, because if they cannot get in through traditional system exploitation or misconfiguration, then they're going to go to identity methods, and they've become very popular. So knowing what you have, covering your fundamentals on your systems, and then protecting anything related to identity. If you do those three things, you're going to be miles ahead of
Yeah,
most people.
absolutely. I think in one of your older podcasts, you said that I think it was good IT starts with good security, and
It does. Yeah. Good IT
good
starts with,
security
or
starts with good
good
IT.
security
So I think
starts with good IT.
both of
Yeah.
them go
Well,
back and forth. So yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, the average attacker, when they get on, they're going to, if I click the phishing link and
hmm
you're now into the system and you're running in context as me, my user account, okay, well, you're me. And does it matter whether Jason accidentally deletes a big trove of shared information because I'm over provisioned on privileges, or whether Landon does it maliciously? Like, whether I do it accidentally or you do it maliciously,
Same outcome.
regardless, the IT team over provisioned
hmm
the permissions, right? And neither one of us should be able to do that. And so, thinking from a user safety aspect of, I don't want the idiot CTO to delete everyone's files, prevents I don't want mean old Landon to delete everyone's files. And like, that's, if you just start from that mindset, you cover so many of your bases right off the bat, and you can get to the fancy stuff later. But most often, even with really sophisticated actors, you'd see them going
Yeah.
after those silly admin tricks where, someone just, they didn't feel like granting a lot of permissions or whatever it was,
Like,
and so they
here,
just
you
hit the
got
easy
this.
button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
yeah,
but
for
thanks for
sure.
having me, Landon. I've
Yeah.
really appreciated our talk together as always. And stay safe out there, everybody.
All right, that's our show. Thank you so much to Jason Kikta for joining. I'll leave you with his reminder. It's the attacker's job to know your network better than you do, but flip the script and know it better. Do the basics well: inventory, patching, and configuration discipline, protecting identities, and don't just back up, test your recovery at scale. As always, I'm Landon Miles, and this is Autonomous IT. Stay safe out there. Know your networks, know your stacks, think like an attacker, and investigate like a hacker. Be curious, take something apart, learn how it works. See you next time.